So we're going to talk about vitamins in this lecture. Vitamins, the word actually comes from the compound word of vital amines, which means they're organic compounds that are made by living things. That is the actual definition of a vitamin. It's an organic compound that is made by living things. There are a lot of different vitamins, but none of them are related to one another. And they are a micronutrient in which that they're needed in usually what's called an international unit, which is a very small amount. Most of the vitamins are needed to perform important functions in the body, like different things for enzymes and protein synthesis and that kind of thing. So different functions in the body is what vitamins are used for as a whole. They can be formed in the cecum by bacteria, they can be formed by sunlight, or you can supply them in the diet. So vitamins are divided into two different kinds. We have the fat soluble and water soluble. So we're going to go through fat soluble first. And the fat soluble vitamins are A, D, E, and K. And then we're going to go through those first. Vitamin A is the first one that we're going to go through. And its basic thing is called carotene. That is the form of vitamin A that we need. And most often it's beta carotene. Carotene is the most plentiful source of vitamin A, and the functions of vitamin A are to aid in vision, to aid in cell differentiation. This is where during reproduction, as the fetus is growing, the cells are differentiating into eye cells and hair cells and skin cells and heart cells and that kind of thing. So vitamin A is very important for cell differentiation. Vitamin A plays a key role in the integrity of the skin and mucous membranes, making sure that those membranes are whole and firm. Okay. Vitamin A is also needed for reproductive efficiency. So if you're lacking vitamin A, your broodmare is probably not going to carry to term. You want to make sure that she has got enough vitamin A in her diet. And then the other thing that vitamin A is used for is for bone remodeling in young horses. And what this means is, like, if you have a young racehorse, for instance, who's been running, and if any of you have ever heard of buck shins, it's basically the horse version of shin splints. And for bone remodeling, that means that vitamin A is needed in order to heal those buck shins or shin splints in the horse. It can happen for splints or fractures or anything, and that's what vitamin A is needed for there. So there are 12 major forms of vitamin A. Again, the most natural or most common is carotene, and beta carotene is the one that we tend to eat the most. It's found in green, fresh forage. Okay, and it's changed to vitamin A in the wall of the intestines. Vitamin A can be destroyed by light, heat, and time. So vitamin A is found in your fresh green hays or fresh green grass. And if your hay has been stored outside in the weather and the sunlight, then over time that vitamin A is going to leach out. In our bodies, it is stored in the liver and the fatty tissues. So that's something to keep in mind. If you have a deficiency of vitamin A, you can have poor eyesight. It can lead to anorexia, which is not eating. You can have poor growth, which is a direct side effect of not being able to remodel those bones. You can have hyperkeratinization, which is where your skin can turn orange. You can have abscess sublingual glands, which are your salivary glands. Those, if you have a deficiency of vitamin A, your salivary glands in your mouth can abscess. That's very painful. You can have brittle and deformed hooves, and of course decreased fertility. If the mare doesn't have vitamin A, we talked about, she could abort her foal. Now, if you have an excess of vitamin A, you can have fragile bones, because it is continually remodeling your bone. You can have skin problems, can lead to depression, and also to teratogenesis, which is deformed babies in your broodmare. Vitamin D is also called the sunshine vitamin because the UV light from the sun reacts with our skin, and then our body produces vitamin D from that. In plants, vitamin D is called vitamin D2. In animals, it's vitamin D3. That's why if you go to the store and you need a supplement of vitamin D, you'll see it says D3 on the bottle. Sunshine activates the D2 to make D3 in a plant. So if we're eating the D2 in lettuce or whatever we happen to be eating it in, and we go outside in the sunshine, then the sunshine will activate it to become D3 in us, which is what we utilize. Same thing for horses. Okay, the functions of vitamin D are the absorption and utilization of calcium and phosphorus. This is needed for bone growth. Okay, if you have a deficiency in it, you'll have decreased bone calcifications, which means your bones are going to be soft or have deformities or fractures even. You could have stiff and swollen joints. They can be kind of a hard keeper, you know, unthrifty or a poor doer. Any of those things that you want to use to describe your horse that just is kind of blah. You'll have a decreased calcium and phosphorus blood levels because they're putting it into the bones and taking it out of the blood. And this can cause eclampsia in broodmares, which is also called milk fever. Now, one thing you need to know is that if your horse is eating any kind of moldy feeds, the molds will interfere with the absorption of vitamin D. So if you're eating anything moldy, you're not going to get as much vitamin D into your blood system. Alright, so excesses. If you have an excess of vitamin D, you're going to have calcinosis, which is too much calcium in the skin. Okay, this in turn will calcify your skin, the blood vessels, the heart, and other soft tissues, making it hard. This makes it very difficult to get blood to where it needs to go. If your skin is calcifying, then you can't sweat, so your body temperature is compromised. Lots of different things can happen there. You'll have bone abnormalities, and an excess will also cause anorexia and lethargy. Vitamin E works with the mineral selenium in order to function in the body. Okay, and the functions of vitamin E are to facilitate wound healing, muscle metabolism, reproductive health, and it is an antioxidant, which is good for the immune system. If you have a deficiency in vitamin E, your horse can tie up, and what that is it's where the muscles are not told to relax. Okay, vitamin E and selenium work to tell the muscles when to relax or contract, and if you have a deficiency in vitamin E, then those muscles are not told to relax, and so your horse is seen with a stiff hind end. They can be unable to move, they can tremble, sweat. If they fall over, then they're in pretty poor prognosis there. But that's what tying up is. If you have a deficiency, you can have decreased conception rates in your broodmares. You can have a decreased immune response in a sick horse. You can have muscle degeneration, also called myodegeneration, and ataxia, which is incoordination. Again, seen with the tying up, where they can't move very well. If you have an excess of vitamin E, it can interfere with the dissolving of other vitamins. So if you have too much vitamin E, maybe your body is not able to uptake as much vitamin A or vitamin D as it needs to. Vitamin K is also called the prothrombin factor, the coagulation vitamin, or the anti-hemorrhagic vitamin. And the reason for this is that vitamin K aids in blood clotting. Okay, so when you're bleeding from a paper cut and all of a sudden you end up with a blood clot or a scab on it, that's vitamin K at work. Now there are different diseases mostly hemophiliacs, that do not have the clotting factors in their bloods, and so they can literally bleed out from a paper cut. So vitamin K is very, very important. It is synthesized from bacteria in the gut. Okay, so you don't want to supplement any kind of vitamin K in the diet, mostly because the bacteria make plenty. Unless your feed is moldy, you have a rancid feed, you're having to feed old feed, any of that kind of stuff that would break down vitamin K in the diet. So you don't want to supplement it unless you have any of those problems. Now, if you have a deficiency in vitamin K, you're more likely to bleed and bleed and bleed and bleed, or hemorrhage. Hemorrhage is, a very large bleeding problem. Bruising, you can bruise all over if you have a deficiency. You can have petechiae, which are very small bruises on the mucous membranes, or anemia. If you're bleeding a lot, you're going to lose a lot of iron in the blood, and so you're going to become anemic. So then we get into our water-soluble vitamins, and there are a whole bunch of them, and they're B complex, and then there are the C vitamins. Okay, B complex vitamins are found in all good quality forage. Okay, so supplied in the grass or the hay, and the functions of B complex vitamins are cofactors. They're basically nutrients that assist other nutrients. Vitamin B helps with laying down fats, with appetite stimulation, healthy skin, and they help prevent nervous problems. Of the B complex vitamins, the first one we're going to talk about is thiamine. Thiamine is an anti-neurotic vitamin, but it can be destroyed by storage of feeds. So if you have feed that's been stored for 2 years, your thiamine content in that is going to be decreased. High temperatures and moisture decreases the thiamine content significantly. So if you have hay that's being stored, say in southeast Texas or Louisiana, somewhere where it's really hot, it's really humid, your feeds are most likely going to be decreased of your thiamine content. Thiamine is not stored in the body anywhere, so it needs to be replenished every day. The functions of thiamine is that it is essential for utilization of carbohydrates. So if you didn't have enough thiamine in your body, you're not going to be able to use the carbohydrates as energy, therefore it will be stored more as fat. You maintain an appetite and your weight gain if your thiamine is at an adequate level, and it is essential for the normal nerve function of a horse. That's why it is an anti-neurotic agent. If you have a deficiency, you'll see anorexia, weight loss, incoordination, and an enlarged heart. Poor quality hay and long storage times for your feed are going to lead to those. Now, there are different plants that can interfere with the thiamine uptake of the diet. So if your horse is eating any one of these weeds, yellow star thistle, bracken fern, or horsetail, then your horse could possibly be deficient in thiamine. So vitamin B2 is riboflavin, and it is a constituent of enzymes, and it's found in grains and synthesized from the bacteria in the hindgut. Now, if you have a deficiency of vitamin B2, you're going to have a decreased growth rate, decreased performance, which means your feed utilization and your reproduction are both going to be decreased. Okay, so the performance is both with how they convert feed and in reproduction. You'll have nervous disorders, could have poor hair quality, and it could have periods of tearing from the eyes called lacrimination. You get riboflavin from your feeds and from the bacteria in the gut again. Alright, vitamin B6, peroxidine. Okay, this is part of an enzyme system that aids in protein, fat, and carbohydrate digestion. Okay, so the enzyme system that aids in protein, fat, and carbohydrate digestion. That's also the function. Alright, so it aids in the digestion of protein, fat, and carbohydrates, which is where we get our energy from in the horse's diet. Now this one is unique in that there are no known deficiencies or excesses with B6, so Horses seem to get enough of it on their own. Niacin is also called nicotinic acid, or B3, and it is a component of enzyme systems. Again, the functions of nicotinic acid or niacin are for cell respiration, which is the utilization of oxygen to create energy, and in that process the horse gives off CO2. So this is where your horse turns feed with the help of oxygen into energy and then give off CO2. It's also needed for the digestion of fats, carbohydrates, and proteins. Choline is another vitamin that is needed for fat metabolism. So if you're deficient in fat in choline, you're not going to be able to metabolize your fat into energy. And this vitamin also aids in the transport of excess fat from your liver to the rest of the body. Okay, not a whole lot to tell about choline. It is found in grains and leafy green vegetables. Alright, B7 or biotin is synthesized in the colon of the horse and the hindgut. Okay, it is one of the vitamins that contains the mineral sulfur. It is a coenzyme that is needed for cell reproduction. So when a cell is about to die and it is reproducing into another cell to take its place, biotin is needed for that. And this is why it is so important for hoof quality, because hoof cells, they grow, they die, and then they're replaced by new ones, and biotin is extremely important for that regrowth of the horse's hoof. B9 or folic acid is needed for red blood cell synthesis. It is stored in the liver. It is sensitive to storage, meaning that again, if sunlight or weather damage has turned your hay from green to yellow, then your folic acid is going to be damaged and you won't actually have that uptake in the body. It's needed for red blood cell synthesis, mainly because your oxygen needs to be carried in the blood, and the red blood cells are what does this. So folic acid is very necessary to build those red blood cells for oxygen carriage to your cells. Okay, it is also needed for the synthesis of DNA. So the absolute most critical time that a horse will need folic acid is during pregnancy. And this is the same for a woman as well. They need to increase those red blood cells that carry oxygen to the fetus, and then they synthesize the DNA of the fetus as well. If you have a deficiency in folic acid, you're going to see anemia and a decreased growth rate, mostly in your fetus, but in your young horses as well. Vitamin B12 is synthesized in nature only by microorganisms in the hindgut. Okay, cobalt, the mineral cobalt, CO, is synthesized into B12 in the hindgut. So in order to make B12, your horse has to have the correct level of cobalt in his diet. And then B12 is used then to metabolize carbohydrates, fats, and proteins. Vitamin C is also called ascorbic acid, and it is readily destroyed by processing. So any vitamin C that is in your feeds, if it's been pelleted or steamed or cooked or crushed or anything like that, vitamin C is going to be destroyed. So your whole oats will have more vitamin C than your cracked oats or crimped oats. Horses can synthesize vitamin C from glucose in the liver, however, so as long as they have enough sugar, simple sugar to glucose in the system, then they can synthesize vitamin C for themselves. It functions as an antioxidant, again, for the immune system. It enhances the formation of tooth dentin and bone matrix, which means it is necessary to help make strong bones and teeth. It's necessary for immune functions, and it is part of the collagen matrix in the joints. So we have cartilage in our joints that is basically like soft bone material. It's not really bone material, but it's soft, and it grows at the ends of our bones, okay? And vitamin C is a major component of that matrix making up the cartilage. Now, if you have if you have hot weather, stressful conditions, or you're really pushing a horse to grow, and when you give flu and rhino vaccinations, these are a good time to supplement with vitamin C, because they will help get your horse through those particular situations.